Good evening. This question from our National Conference of Women Bar Association teleconference registrants. We have lots of questions that we've received, more time, more questions than we will certainly have time to respond to in tomorrow's teleconference. So I'm taking some time this evening to respond to some of the more common questions. And as I read this list, over and over again, women are asking questions which all come back to lack of confidence. So, overcoming stereotypical barriers, getting credit for my contribution, how to be heard over talkative men who constantly interrupt me. How can I best communicate that I'm an expert? How do I compensate for looking younger? So many of these questions that I'm seeing come back to not speaking up and being heard, not negotiating best for ourselves, not or falling short of making sure that our voice is heard in the room. Maybe I just said that, but in that I interpret that when we're not being compensated fairly, when we don't get plum assignments, when we're not getting the promotions, that comes to me, and I've lived through this, is that we didn't ask. And as women, we often don't ask. We take what's given to us. We don't try to negotiate our way upwards. We don't have a plan. We don't have a vision. We don't know where we want to be. We just know we want to be someplace different than where we are right now. And so first is we must get clear about what is it that we actually want. And maybe what we want is not the situation that we're currently in. So if you take some time to get quiet and listen and consider what it is that you actually want, then it's easier to develop a written plan of how to get there. That's number one. Number two, I lived through too many meetings as the only woman in the C-suite not only in the C-suite, but in the management committee meetings, that I felt like I was having darts thrown at me, and there was no way humanly possible that I could respond to the questions as quickly as they were being fired at me from generally white Caucasian male. And so it's learning how to refine our communication skills, to slow down all of the idle chatter and the darts coming our way to ensure that our voice is heard. So that comes to the next question of, well, what if I get in trouble? Or what if somebody takes exception to that? Or what if I'm, being perceived as being subordinate? Here's the thing we must remember. If you're in that room, you're in that room for a certain purpose. You've been invited to be a part of that room. There were plenty of times where I wasn't invited to be in the room, and I came into the room anyway, because I had a purpose and I had something that I needed to say or that needed to be said. And so that all comes from being solid inside of our confidence. When I get pushback from women who say they're confident, I am speaking of confidence in a very universal way, which also includes that voice in our head, that inner critic, that voice of self-doubt, that disease to please, I'm afraid of what other people will think. Am I good enough? Do I belong in this room? Those are all symptoms that lead back to the same road of lack of confidence. And that's not to say that we're failures. Absolutely not. It means that because of the way that we've been conditioned by society and the female-male norms when we were children, we as females were taught not to rock the boat, not to speak up, to be quiet, to settle what's given to us. And that is not our fault. It's not our fault at all. What is our now responsibility as adult women who are in positions of potential leadership or are in leadership is to make sure that our voice is heard, and asking for what we want and negotiating upwards because we have a vision, because we have a plan. I have a plan. One of my plans over the years, speaking of that, is I have developed an extensive reading list by women for women that I would be delighted to share with anyone if you shoot me an email at kimberly@klamarketing.net. It addresses all these reading recommendations in addition to my own published works, which is a part of the list. And you'll find downloads, free downloads on our website, klamarketing.com. Is also works by extraordinary women that have lived, have walked the talk, that do walk the talk, that can speak authoritatively to many, many of these issues. And I would highly recommend, if you're serious about growing professionally and personally and advancing and developing a book of business and rainmaking while female, that constant professional development is part of your toolkit. So give that some consideration, and I hope that's helpful.